So, I have a weird history with the Insidious franchise. The first one came out, right around the time I was like really getting into horror, while still being, a bit naive about the genre. I mean, I've watched it recently, and, I think that it holds up pretty well, even if it's got its flaws. I tried watching part two, and it just did nothing for me, although, I'm game for giving it another shot. But because of that, I did skip all of the others. Well, after hearing that the storyline circled back to what they did with the debut, I figured I should at least, check out the most recent installment.
Insidious, The Red Door.
As most of us know, most horror movies were meant to be standalone films and typically only turn into franchises if they do well financially. I mean, that's just kind of the sad truth of it. But hey, us fans, sometimes we get some decent sequels. And I do like horror sequels, as much as the next dude, but it'll always come across to me as sometimes a bit disingenuous. And I'm always distracted by trying to, differentiate the cash grabs from sequels that actually have some passion behind them. Sometimes I just need to chill out and just shut my mind off. You guys don't want to know what it's like to live with this little brain that I've got. Anyways, Insidious, The Red Door was released in 2023, and it is the fifth film in the franchise that's been going since 2010. It was written by Leigh Whannell, who has written all of the Insidious films, and I do respect that consistency. And this time around, we have lead actor Patrick Wilson directing. In fact, this is his directorial debut, which is pretty cool. In addition to Wilson, we've got Ty Simpkins and Rose Byrne returning as the Lambert family, so if you've seen the 2010 Insidious, you'll be familiar with them. So after a couple of prequels, again, I haven't seen them, we have circled back to the Lambert family, as I said. And I suppose you could say the Lamberts have had a pretty rough go for the last 8 or so years. Josh has had a hard time returning to normal life, causing a strain on his relationship with his kids, and Renee has divorced him because of everything that they've went through. And to add to all of that, his mom had just passed away. So the beginning shows the Lamberts at her funeral. This seemed to really get the ball rolling, and Josh and Dalton are having visions, it seems, yet again, like their past has caught back up with them or something. Dalton, who was a kid in the first film, is now starting his first year of college. And out of all the Lambert kids, he seems to be the one that most resents his dad. Josh has been struggling with things that he just doesn't understand, and this has caused him to become distant. And I have to say, as a dad myself, I actually really sympathize with Josh here. I mean, I know what it's like to struggle with things that people can't see or can't understand, and I find that when people don't understand something, they tend to jump to conclusions. So Josh wants to reconnect with Dalton, who is, understandably resistant. And I just found this aspect of the film to, resonate with me on a personal level. As soon as Dalton gets to his new college dorm, he meets Chris Winslow, played by Sinclair Daniel. And I have to say, I just loved her. I had not ever seen her in a movie before, and within the first 10 minutes of her showing up, I had paused the movie to look up what other stuff she had done. And I found one in particular that caught my eye. Really want to check it out. So Chris and Dalton become friends rather quickly, and he eventually opens up to her about these visions he's been seeing. I know, maybe not the most realistic thing, but this is a movie after all. She ponders it for a while, does a quick Google search, and comes to the conclusion that Dalton had been experiencing astral projection. And I mean, if you've seen any of the Insidious films, you know that she's right, but it was a bit lazy, I think, in the writing department. She really just shouldn't have figured it out so quickly or so easily. And for those that have never seen Insidious, there are select few people with the ability to astral project in this universe, at least. They're pretty much born with it, and it's often passed down from a parent. These people don't even know that they have this ability, and they typically do it while they sleep. So every time they do it, they risk getting the attention of a malevolent spirit who will try and use them to return to the realm of the living. Maybe not the most unique concept, but I think it's pretty cool. It works for me. So spoiler alert, in case you haven't seen the previous films, Josh and Dalton were hypnotized into forgetting about their supernatural abilities and everything that happened to them during that time. So a big part of this movie is them trying to figure out why they feel so, off. Josh actually thinks that maybe his dad was part of, why he's feeling this way. He had never actually met his dad, but felt strongly that his troubles were possibly stemming from him. And honestly, I kind of liked the first act of this movie when it was more of just like a family drama, oddly enough. And as I said, I really liked Dalton's roommate, Chris, but I thought her kind of leaving for most of the third act felt really disjointed. The performances here are all pretty solid across the board, especially from Ty Simpkins and Patrick Wilson. And Patrick Wilson's directing is also really solid, especially considering this was his debut, and, I'm sure this franchise does mean a lot to him. I'm also going to add, so Patrick Wilson sings a song, it's in the end credits, sings a song with the band Ghost, who I'm a big fan of, and I think it's a kind of a good song. Like, he's got a pretty good voice, he can sing pretty well. Maybe it's not, not really my cup of tea. Although I do like Ghost. They didn't write the song. They just played the music. I don't know. I kind of like the song in maybe a guilty pleasure way. So there's a lot about this film that didn't work for me. Like the fact that at the end of the day, this is very much a Blumhouse film, and it looks like it, and it just kind of bugged me the whole time. I don't know if I'd say that it looks cheap, but something just feels off to me. And I miss the feeling of the first film, which is funny because the budget here was much, much larger. It might be considered a fairly small budget nowadays, but the first film, to me, it just looks better in every single way, and it had like 1/10 of the budget here. Doesn't make any sense to me. I also didn't really care for what they did with, the further, which is what they call the realm you travel to while you're astral projecting. By the way, I think that's my second air quotes for this video. Hopefully my last. And I just can't really seem to stop comparing it to the 2010 film where it was just done so much better. The further in that first movie was just so much more. It had just so much more imagination involved. It was creepy in all the right ways. It just worked so well, and it just doesn't. It didn't interest me at all. There is an atmosphere of tension, but it just didn't feel as creepy or as sinister. They even brought back the lipstick demon, but he doesn't work for me here either, and I thought he was fine in the first movie. Overall, I found this to be a solid watch. I genuinely like the Lambert family, but this movie didn't seem just all that necessary, just like a lot of other movies, It's not something that I'll likely watch again, as to where I return to the first film at least every 4 or 5 years. And honestly, I'm just starting to think that maybe it would have worked better as a standalone film. I don't know. What do you guys think? Cheers.